Good afternoon, America. I'm JJ Hastings, and you're listening to the Shatterpoint. Today on Civics Blown Open, we're breaking down the separation of powers and exploring how the legislative, executive, and judicial branches keep America running through an exploration of the three branches of the U.S. government. We're so glad you're here. The U.S. government is divided into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. This system, called separation of powers, or a way of dividing government duties, is meant to stop one branch from becoming too powerful. Each branch has a specific job, but work together through checks and balances, which are rules to make sure no one branch can act alone to keep everything fair. So let's break down each branch. The legislative branch makes the laws. Who's in it? Congress, which is made up of the House of Representatives, which is 435 members who are elected to serve for 2-year terms, and Senate, which is composed of 100 members elected to serve a 6-year term. What does the legislative branch actually do? Well, they write and pass laws. The legislative branch creates the rules, called laws, that everyone in the country must follow. Members of Congress debate and vote on these laws to make sure they are fair and helpful. Once both parts of Congress, which remember is the House of Representatives and the Senate, come to an agreement, the law is sent to the President to approve or veto, which means to reject. They also approve budgets. Congress decides how much money the government will spend each year and what it will be used for, like schools, roads, and the military. They make a budget, which is a plan for spending money, and vote to approve it. This is meant to make sure that public money is spent wisely and fairly. You can also declare war. Only Congress has the power to officially declare war against another country. This means they decide when the U.S. military should be involved in a conflict. Declaring war is a serious decision, so Congress discusses it carefully before voting. And they also approve the president's choice for certain jobs. When the president wants to appoint someone to an important job, like a Supreme Court justice or a cabinet member, Congress gets to approve or reject that choice. The Senate, which is part of Congress, holds hearings to learn more about the person before voting. This process ensures that the people in these roles are qualified and fair, and is called a confirmation process. But what's some of the things the legislative branch cannot do? Well, they cannot enforce or carry out laws. They cannot decide if laws follow the U.S. Constitution, which is the highest law of the United States. They cannot change the Constitution without approval from the states, and they cannot control local laws. The second branch is the executive branch, which enforces the laws. So who's in it? Well, we have the president, the vice president, the office of the White House, the 15 cabinet departments, such as the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, federal agencies like the FBI, NASA, and the CIA, and regulatory commissions, who set rules industries must follow, like the SEC. So what exactly does the executive branch do? Well, they make sure laws are enforced or carried out. The executive branch ensures that the laws passed by Congress are followed across the country. Federal agencies like the FBI or the Department of Education help enforce specific laws, from catching criminals to overseeing school policies. They lead the armed forces. The president is the commander-in-chief of the military, meaning they are in charge of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force. This includes making decisions about how the military is used to protect the country and respond to threats. However, remember that the executive branch cannot declare war. That's something that can only happen in Congress. Additionally, they negotiate treaties, which are formal agreements with other countries. The president works with leaders from other countries to create agreements on issues like trade, peace, and climate change. These treaties often need to be approved by the Senate before they can go into effect. And finally, they appoint or choose people to federal roles. The president themselves selects people for key positions, such as Supreme Court justices, ambassadors to other countries, and heads of different federal departments. These appointments must usually be approved by the Senate to make sure that the person is qualified for that role. What are some things the executive branch cannot do? Well, they can't write laws, they can't decide if laws follow the Constitution, and they cannot officially declare war. The third branch is the judicial branch, which interprets the laws. So who's in it? The Supreme Court, which is composed of 9 judges called justices, the Court of Appeals, which reviews decisions from district courts, and the district courts themselves, which are like local and regional trial courts. So what exactly does the judicial branch do? Well, they decide if laws or actions go against the Constitution. The judicial branch checks if laws made by Congress or actions taken by the President go against the U.S. Constitution, which again is the supreme law of the land. If a law doesn't follow the Constitution, the courts can declare it to be unconstitutional and make that law or action invalid. They also handle disagreements between states or branches. The courts help resolve problems between states, like disputes over land and resources. They also handle disagreements between the different branches of government when they don't agree how to interpret the law or the Constitution itself. And finally, they review decisions from lower courts. If someone disagrees with a decision made by a lower court, they can ask a higher court to review the case. Courts like the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court look at the case again to make sure the law was applied correctly and that the person had a fair trial. However, the judicial branch cannot make laws or actually enforce them, and they can't start new cases. They can only rule on cases that have been brought to them. By dividing power between these 3 branches, the government can prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful, which helps to protect the rights and freedoms of all Americans and those living within the United States. Each branch has its own important role, and they work together to ensure that laws are fair and that the country is run smoothly. Understanding how these branches work helps us understand how decisions are made every day in the United States. For some sources and additional reading on this topic, you can recommend the Supreme Court website, USA.gov, Congress.gov, or the White House website. Thank you for listening.